Dr. Sarah Chen never thought she'd witness humanity's first contact while holding her daughter's hand. The massive ship had appeared 3 days ago, emerging from what the scientists called a folded space corridor above Earth's atmosphere. Its crystalline surface reflected sunlight in patterns that seemed to defy physics, casting rainbow fractals across the sky visible even during daylight. The global response had been surprisingly unified. After decades of preparing for this moment, humanity's first contact protocols activated seamlessly. No panic in the streets, no market crashes, just a measured response that made Sarah proud to be human. As Earth's leading xenobiologist, she had been quickly summoned to the newly established First Contact Center in Geneva, bringing her 10-year-old daughter Maya with her. There hadn't been time for anything else. The Arxer, as they called themselves, appeared surprisingly similar to humanity's science fiction depictions of advanced aliens. Tall, elegant beings with silvery skin that seemed to shimmer with bioluminescent patterns. Their ambassador, who called himself Voice of Distant Winds, had specifically requested to meet human children as part of their cultural exchange program. "They are the purest expression of your species' potential," the ambassador had said through his translation device, his patterns shifting to what their xenolinguists interpreted as joy. "We wish to understand how humans nurture their young." Sarah watched as Maya approached the cultural exchange area, a specially designed space where human children could interact with safe holographic representations of Arxer technology. The security protocols had been extensively tested. Every safety measure had been triple-checked. She had personally reviewed the neurological compatibility studies. None of that mattered when Maya reached out to touch a floating crystalline sphere, and everything went wrong. The sphere, meant to be a simple educational tool, resonated at a frequency that human scientists hadn't known could interact with human consciousness. Maya's eyes widened in surprise, then fear, as her body began to glow with an inner light that shouldn't have been possible. Sarah's scream joined dozens of others as she ran forward, but she was too late. Maya dissolved into particles of light, scattering like stardust in a solar wind. The next few moments were chaos. Security forces swarmed the area. The Arxer delegation was quickly escorted to their ship, their patterns now showing what would later be identified as horror and remorse. Voice of Distant Winds attempted to explain through his translator that this was unprecedented, that their technology had been tested on thousands of species, that they would provide compensation according to galactic law. Sarah heard none of it. She stood where Maya had been, her hands trying to grasp particles of light that had already faded. A single thought crystallized in her mind, cutting through the shock and grief with laser precision. They hadn't tested their technology on humans. They had assumed we were like the others. The Arxer ship departed within hours, leaving behind a data package containing their deepest apologies and offers of technological trade as restitution. They didn't understand that they had just made the worst mistake in their species' history. 2 days later, Sarah stood before the United Earth Security Council. Her voice was steady as she addressed the assembled leaders of humanity. The Arxer's mistake wasn't just carelessness, she said, manipulating the holographic display to show her analysis. It was arrogance. Their technology operates on principles that assume all sentient life evolved along similar patterns. They never considered that human consciousness might be fundamentally different. She brought up the data they'd collected during the incident. Maya didn't die in the conventional sense. The resonance pattern of their educational tool caused a quantum tunneling effect, specific to human neural patterns. She's not dead. She was transformed into a state of matter we barely understand. The council chamber was silent as the implications sank in. Sarah continued, her grief now hardened into something else entirely. They gave us their technological database as compensation. Within it, I found references to similar incidents across their history. The Arxer are part of a galactic community that has grown comfortable with the occasional acceptable loss in the name of progress. She looked each council member in the eye. They expect us to grieve, to accept their compensation, and to eventually join their community as another civilization that understands that progress has a price. They don't understand that humanity has already paid enough prices. We don't accept losses anymore. We solve problems. Sarah brought up her final slide, a theoretical framework that made several council members lean forward in shock. Using their own data, I've begun to understand how their quantum resonance technology works. More importantly, I've started to understand how it could be modified to reverse what happened to Maya. But to do that, we need to advance our technology by several centuries' worth of development. How long would that normally take? Asked the council president. Sarah's expression hardened. For them, 1,000 years of careful research and development. For us, I already assembled a team. Give us 5 years. They turned my daughter into energy. Fine. I'll turn their laws of physics into suggestions. The council's approval was unanimous. As Sarah left the chamber, she received the first of what would become thousands of messages from parents around the world, offering their support, resources, and expertise. The Arxer had assumed humanity would respond like any other civilization. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. The world changed quietly in the years following the Geneva incident. While the Arxer and their galactic community expected signs of rapid militarization or angry demands for justice, Earth presented a carefully crafted image of solemn acceptance. Official channels spoke of processing grief, of learning from the tragedy, of hoping to rejoin galactic society when the time was right. The reality, however, was something entirely different. Deep beneath the Himalayas, in a facility that didn't officially exist, Dr. Sarah Chen stood before a wall of quantum probability matrices that would have made most alien physicists question their understanding of reality. The project, officially designated Operation Stardust, but known to its thousands of participants as the Maya Protocol, had progressed faster than anyone had dared to hope. The breakthrough came from something so simple we almost missed it. Sarah explained to the assembled Global Science Council. The Arxer's technology assumes consciousness follows universal constants, but human consciousness doesn't just break their rules. It was never playing by them in the first place. The holographic display showed what looked like a dance of light and energy, reminiscent of the moment Maya had vanished. But now, there was order to the chaos, purpose to the patterns. Every human brain creates its own quantum field, completely unique to our species. When their educational tool interacted with Maya, it didn't destroy her. It translated her into pure quantum information. And thanks to their own database, we now know where that information went. Admiral James Rodriguez, the military liaison to the project, leaned forward. Are you saying you can track her? Sarah's smile held no warmth. Better. We've learned to speak the universe's native language. Every particle of Maya's consciousness left a trace in the quantum fabric of space-time. Using modified versions of the Arxer's own technology, we can follow those traces. But that's not all. She gestured, and a holographic display expanded to show what looked like a series of interlocking energy fields. We've developed what we're calling quantum resonance engines. They don't just let us track quantum information. They let us manipulate it. We can fold space not by brute force like the Arxer, but by understanding how human consciousness naturally interfaces with quantum fields. The implications weren't lost on anyone in the room. Humanity had just developed faster than light travel, not through centuries of incremental advancement, but by understanding how their own minds could reshape reality. There's more, Sarah continued. Every test we've run shows that human quantum fields are fundamentally different from any species in the Arxer database. We don't just process reality. We interact with it in ways their science said was impossible, ways they never imagined to try. The next series of demonstrations left even the hardened military observers in stunned silence. Quantum shields that could selectively phase matter based on intent. Communication systems that used entangled human consciousness to transmit information instantly across any distance. Weapons that could disrupt the very forces holding matter together, but only when wielded by a human mind. How did we achieve in 5 years what they claimed would take centuries? Sarah asked rhetorically. Because they never had a reason to look where we did. They never had to find a way to bring back a lost child. They never understood that human consciousness isn't just another variation on a universal theme. It's something entirely new. Admiral Rodriguez studied the data with a tactician's eye. They won't expect any of this. Their sensors won't even know how to detect our ships. That's the beauty of it, Sarah agreed. We're not just advancing along their technological path. We're creating an entirely new branch of science, one that only works because of what we are. The project's next phase was approved unanimously. Within months, the first human quantum ships would be ready for launch. They would appear to alien sensors as nothing more than background quantum noise, their human pilot's consciousness allowing them to slip through reality's fabric like ghosts. But first, they had to test the technology where it mattered most. In a specially constructed chamber deep within the facility, Sarah stood before a quantum resonance engine calibrated to the exact frequency that had taken Maya. The air hummed with potential as she placed her hand on the control panel. The Arxer thought they knew the rules, she whispered. They thought they could calculate the cost of progress in acceptable losses, but they never met a species that simply refuses to accept loss. They never met humans before. As the quantum fields began to align, Sarah felt something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in 5 years. Hope. Somewhere in the quantum fabric of the universe, Maya was waiting, and humanity had just rewritten physics itself to bring her home. The real question was what would happen when the galactic community realized what humanity had become in their quest to save one child. They were about to learn that the species they dismissed as primitive had transformed their greatest tragedy into a revolution in consciousness itself. The Arxer mining fleet never saw the human ships coming. Their sensors, designed to detect every known form of propulsion and energy signature in the galaxy, registered nothing but normal background quantum fluctuations as 5 vessels of impossible design slipped through the fabric of space-time itself. Captain Maria Santos watched from the bridge of the HSY Prometheus as her small fleet surrounded the alien mining operation. The ships, sleek constructs of material that existed in multiple quantum states simultaneously, were humanity's first declaration to the stars. But they weren't here for revenge. They were here for answers. Quantum signatures are stabilizing, her science officer reported. We're detecting consciousness patterns similar to the ones from the Geneva incident. These mining ships used the same basic technology. Maria nodded, her expression grim. Begin the demonstration. Remember, precision is everything. We're not here to harm. We're here to make them understand. The human ships activated their quantum resonance fields in perfect synchronization. To the Arxer crews, it must have seemed like reality itself had begun to hiccup. Their crystalline technology, so advanced by conventional standards, suddenly found itself trying to operate in an environment where the basic rules of physics had become polite suggestions. This is Captain Maria Santos of Earth. She broadcast on all frequencies, her words automatically translated by systems far more sophisticated than the Arxer's universal translators. Your mining operation is now under our observation. We have some questions about quantum consciousness technology, and you're going to help us find answers. The Arxer ships' attempts to power up their weapons or engage their drives proved futile. The human quantum fields had created a bubble of altered space where only human consciousness could reliably interact with reality. It was technology that shouldn't have been possible for centuries, if ever. The lead Arxer vessel finally responded, their transmission carrying clear tones of confusion and fear. This is Overseer Kelks of the 7th Mining Fleet. Your presence here is impossible. Your technology cannot exist. 5 years ago, Maria replied, your people said it was impossible for human consciousness to interact with quantum educational tools in unexpected ways. You were wrong then too. Now about those questions. What followed was less an interrogation and more a systematic dismantling of everything the Arxer thought they knew about physics and consciousness. The human ships demonstrated capabilities that the alien miners couldn't even properly detect. let alone understand. Their sensors, designed to observe normal spacetime, could barely process what was happening. "We've confirmed it," Sarah Chen's voice came through on the private channel. She had insisted on being part of this mission, and no one had dared argue. Their mining technology uses the same quantum principles as their educational tools. The only difference is scale and application. "Captain, we can use this." Maria felt a smile tug at her lips. This was why humanity had chosen this particular mining fleet. Not for revenge, but for verification. "Overseer Kelks, we're transmitting a message now. You will deliver it to your government, and they will share it with the galactic community." The message was simple but profound. Humanity had not spent the last 5 years developing weapons or planning revenge. They had done something far more significant. They had discovered that human consciousness itself was a key to understanding the universe in ways the galactic community had never imagined. "Your civilization lost our trust when you treated the loss of a child as an acceptable diplomatic incident," Maria continued. "But we're not here to punish you. We're here to inform you that your understanding of reality is incomplete. Humanity doesn't want war. We want our child back. And we've just rewritten the laws of physics to make that possible." As if to emphasize the point, one of the human ships simply phased through an Arxer vessel, passing through its hull like a ghost before rematerializing on the other side. The Arxer crew's panic was palpable in their transmissions. "You have one standard galactic month," Maria declared. "Share everything you know about consciousness translation incidents. Help us find every trace of quantum information your technology has scattered across the cosmos. Help us bring them all back, not just our child, but every consciousness your civilization has accidentally displaced." She paused, letting the implications sink in. "If you don't, we'll do it ourselves. And trust me, you don't want to see what else humanity can accomplish when we decide the rules of reality need updating." As the human fleet prepared to depart, Sarah Chen sent one final message to the stunned Arxer crews. "Tell your leaders this. We didn't develop this technology for war. We developed it because you thought the loss of a child was an acceptable price for progress. Now you get to see what real progress looks like, when it's driven not by acceptance of loss, but by the absolute refusal to accept it." The human ships vanished, leaving behind a mining fleet with a message that would shake the foundations of galactic society. Humanity hadn't just caught up technologically. They had taken a completely different path, one that promised to rewrite everything the galactic community thought they knew about consciousness, reality, and what was possible. The impact of humanity's demonstration rippled through galactic society like a quantum wave collapse. The Arxer mining fleet's logs spread across subspace channels, and with them, footage of technology that should not have been possible. The response was immediate and unprecedented. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session for the first time in 3 centuries. In the great crystalline chamber of the Council's meeting hall, representatives from over 1,000 species gathered to confront a reality they weren't prepared to accept. Humanity hadn't just advanced. They had taken an evolutionary leap that challenged the very foundations of galactic science. First Speaker K'tal, a being of pure energy contained within an ancient crystalline matrix, addressed the assembly. The implications of human quantum consciousness technology cannot be overstated. They haven't merely caught up to our level of development. They've discovered an entirely new path of technological evolution. The chamber erupted in overlapping waves of communication as various species expressed their concern, fear, and in some cases, fascination. The Arxer representative, voice of distant winds, stood before the assembly, their patterns displaying complex emotions that their translation systems struggled to convey. "We have received their demands," they announced. "Humanity seeks not revenge, but restoration. They believe all consciousness translation incidents can be reversed. They want our help to locate and restore every being affected by quantum resonance accidents throughout our history." A ripple of disbelief passed through the assembly. The Marillax representative, a crystalline entity floating above their pedestal, spoke next. "Impossible. The consciousness translations are irreversible. This is known. The information is scattered across quantum fields spanning galaxies. Humanity, voice of distant winds replied, has demonstrated that much of what we thought was known may be incorrect. Their understanding of consciousness itself appears to transcend our models. They aren't asking if it's possible. They're telling us they've already figured out how to do it. Meanwhile, aboard the HSS Prometheus, now stationed at the edge of Council space, Sarah Chen reviewed the incoming data streams with growing excitement. The Galactic database was vast, containing records of every consciousness translation incident in recorded history. What the Council saw as a tragic archive, she saw as a map. Each incident left a unique quantum signature, she explained to Captain Santos. Like fingerprints in the fabric of space-time, Maya's consciousness wasn't destroyed. It was converted into pure quantum information, scattered across multiple dimensions. But it maintained coherence because human consciousness naturally exists in a quantum state. She brought up a holographic display showing thousands of glowing points scattered across a map of the galaxy. These are all the recorded incidents. Each point represents a consciousness suspended in quantum state, waiting to be restored. The Council thought they were recording tragedy. They were actually creating a rescue map. Back in the Council chamber, the debate had turned to more practical concerns. The Helleran representative, their crystalline form vibrating with anxiety, addressed the assembly. If humans can alter local physics through consciousness alone, what's to prevent them from doing the same to our worlds, our technologies, our very beings? Voice of distant winds patterns shifted to what their species used to indicate profound understanding. You're asking the wrong question. Humanity has held this power for months now. And what have they done with it? They haven't attacked. They haven't demanded reparations. They've asked for our help to save lives we thought were lost forever. The chamber fell silent as recordings from the mining fleet incident played again. The human ships, moving through reality like quantum ghosts, demonstrating power that should have been impossible. But not once had they caused harm, not even to the ships that had been using the same technology that had taken their child. First Speaker Katal's energy form pulsed thoughtfully. Perhaps we have been looking at this wrong. We saw the consciousness translations as unfortunate, but necessary sacrifices on the path of progress. Humanity saw them as problems to be solved. And in solving them, they may have advanced our understanding of the universe more in 5 years than we have in 5 millennia. In that moment, as the Council debated, humanity's quantum ships were already moving through the galaxy, following the quantum trails left by centuries of consciousness translations. Each ship carried technology powered by the unique properties of human consciousness, searching for scattered fragments of awareness across the quantum foam of space-time. Sarah Chen stood at her station, watching the quantum signatures align. Somewhere out there, Maya's consciousness was waiting, maintained in perfect coherence by the very qualities that made human consciousness unique, and they were going to bring her home, her and every other being that the galaxy had written off as an acceptable loss. The Council doesn't understand yet, she said to Captain Santos. They think we achieved the impossible because we wanted to prove them wrong. But that's not it at all. We did it because somewhere out there, a little girl is waiting for her mother to find her. And we're human. We don't accept that anything is impossible when it comes to saving our children. The quantum resonance chamber aboard the HSS Prometheus hummed with possibilities as Sarah Chen made the final adjustments. After months of following quantum trails across the galaxy, after gathering scattered consciousness signatures from 1,000 points in space, they were ready. The chamber, a marvel of human ingenuity, was designed to do what the galactic community had deemed impossible: rebuild a consciousness from its quantum components. All quantum signatures are aligned, Sarah announced, her voice steady despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm her. Maya's consciousness pattern is complete. We can begin the restoration process. The chamber was filled with representatives from across the galaxy. The Galactic Council had insisted on witnessing this moment, though few of them truly understood what they were about to see. Voice of distant winds stood among them, their patterns showing a complex mixture of hope and trepidation. As Sarah activated the quantum resonance field, reality itself seemed to hold its breath. The air in the chamber began to shimmer with possibilities, quantum potentials collapsing into certainty one by one. A shape began to form in the center of the room, built from light and probability, and a mother's refusal to accept loss. Maya Chen materialized exactly as she had been 5 years ago, her hand still reaching out to touch a crystalline sphere that was no longer there. She blinked, looked around in confusion, then saw her mother. "Mom?" she asked, her voice carrying no trace of the years that had passed. What happened to the pretty lights? The reunion that followed left even the most stoic council members struggling with unfamiliar emotions. Sarah held her daughter tight. 5 years of determination and hope crystallizing into this single moment. But Maya's restoration was just the beginning. "The process works," Sarah announced to the assembled representatives, still holding Maya's hand. "The quantum resonance patterns we've gathered can restore every consciousness that was ever translated. Every being your civilization wrote off as an acceptable loss can be brought back." Voice of distant winds stepped forward, their patterns showing what their species used to indicate profound revelation. "You've done more than prove us wrong about what's possible," they said. "You've shown us what we should have been all along." Over the next several months, restoration chambers were built across the galaxy. Humanity shared their quantum consciousness technology freely, but with one condition: it could only be used to preserve and protect life, never as a weapon. The galactic community, faced with the choice between learning humanity's way or being left behind, chose to learn. The impact went far beyond just restoring those who had been lost. Humanity's understanding of quantum consciousness revolutionized galactic society. Ships now navigated space using human-inspired quantum fields, making travel safer and more efficient. Medical technology incorporated quantum consciousness principles, leading to breakthroughs in treating conditions once thought incurable. But perhaps the most profound change was philosophical. The galactic community had operated for millennia on the assumption that progress required sacrifice, that some losses were inevitable. Humanity had proved that assumption wrong not through force or threats, but by simply refusing to accept it. 1 year after Maya's restoration, Sarah Chen stood before the Galactic Council again, but this time as humanity's appointed representative. The chamber was different now, redesigned with quantum consciousness technology that allowed direct emotional communication between species. "We came to the stars carrying a grief that you couldn't understand," she told the assembled representatives. "You thought we would seek revenge, or demand power, or try to reshape the galaxy in our image. Instead, we showed you something you had forgotten, that every life matters, that no loss is acceptable, and that the impossible is just something we haven't figured out yet." The Council's response was to establish what would become known as the Guardian Protocol, a new fundamental law of galactic society. Never again would any civilization's development come at the cost of lives lost. Humanity's quantum consciousness technology would ensure that accidents could be reversed, that consciousness could be preserved, that no child would ever again be considered an acceptable loss. Maya, now a student of quantum consciousness theory herself, often visited the chamber where she had been restored. The technology that had once scattered her consciousness across the galaxy now served as a reminder of what humanity had achieved, not through violence or revenge, but through love, determination, and the simple, unshakable belief that anything was possible. "They thought we would use our pain to hurt them," she told a group of young aliens studying Earth's quantum consciousness techniques. "Instead, we used it to heal everyone. That's what makes us human. We don't just overcome the impossible, we rewrite it to make the universe better for everyone." As Earth's quantum ships continued to patrol the galaxy, they served not as weapons of war, but as guardians of consciousness itself. They were a reminder to every civilization that progress need not come at the cost of lives, that technology should serve life rather than demand its sacrifice, and that the most powerful force in the universe wasn't physics or quantum mechanics, it was the simple, human refusal to accept that anything or anyone was ever truly lost.